Welcome to Physicians Keepers. Each episode features honest conversations with physicians, sharing moments that shaped them, challenged them, or taught them something worth passing on. These stories come from every corner of a physician's life: the clinic, OR, family, finances, mental health, leadership, and personal growth. If a story can help another doctor feel seen or strengthened, it belongs here. It's about honesty, courage, and community true storytelling. If you are looking for connection or a reminder that you are not alone in navigating this profession, you are in the right place. Hello and welcome to another episode of Physicians Keepers. I'm so excited to have you all here today. Today is going to be another interesting and insightful conversation, and I'm so glad I have Dr. Bianca Busch who is here with me. Thank you so much for Dr. Bianca for accepting this invitation. So we are going to go straight to it because I really want you to hear her story. I know it'll inspire a lot of you, so I'm going to read her bio here. She is a Harvard and University of Chicago trained double board certified psychiatrist in adult psychiatry and child and adolescent psychiatry. She is also the founder of the College Psychiatrist and Test Anxiety No More, where she combines neuroscience, psychology, and her own lived experiences to help people overcome high stakes performance anxiety. A big part of her mission comes from the adversity that she has faced personally. She has failed exams that mattered. She's had moments in training where she did not get the opportunity she wanted or felt like she was falling behind. Those experiences were deeply humbling, but they have also shaped how she practices and how she shows up for students, trainees, and physicians who feel defined by a score or setback. She runs a private practice in Texas and works with students and professionals across the country as she is licensed in 12 states. Her focus is helping high-achieving individuals, including physicians, rebuild confidence, understand their nervous system, and develop strategies that help them not just perform better, but also heal from the emotional impact of failure or disappointment. Her work is grounded in the belief that setbacks do not make you less capable. They often reveal your resilience, your alignment, and your next direction. So that really sounds amazing, Dr. Busch. So thank you so much for such an inspiring bio. So I'm going to kind of go back a bit for you and see, can you take us kind of back to like your early medical training? What type of student were you, and what were the pressures that you were carrying at that time? What expectations did you have of yourself, and did everything kind of play out the way you wanted to?
No. So I had 7 years between my undergrad and starting medical school. So
Okay.
I worked for a while in public health, public policy, and then at a public hospital in the Boston area. And I had a fairly low GPA coming from undergrad. So during that time, I was working and I was also taking classes, post-baccalaureate classes. And so I had built confidence in when I was taking those post-baccalaureate classes. I had figured out what worked for me, was getting really great grades, went through the application process, took the MCAT again and got in. So I entered medical school thinking, okay, I know a bit more about myself as a learner. I've got this. I am smart. And, the first exam, the first block was anatomy and physiology. And so
Yeah.
here I am diligently working. One of the things that worked for me as a post-baccalaureate student was to just spend time in the open office hours, homework labs. I would go any free time that I had. I would just go. So I applied the same thing to anatomy and physiology. And anytime that lab was open, I was there. After hours, upperclassmen would give us some extra time to tutor and things like that. And I was there. I mean, you talk about carrying that formaldehyde smell home. That was me, okay? And at the end of that block, I got a 70% on the exam. And that was not what I was expecting
Yeah.
because I felt like I had put a lot of work in, and other people just had much higher scores. And I'm like, what is going on here? So it was different than I anticipated. And I
Yeah.
started to panic a little bit because I'm like, this is just the first block. We have so many more. There's a lot
What
more
does the future
information
look
behind.
like? Yeah.
yeah, what's going to happen? And so I took a little bit of time at that moment to get some testing to figure out what was going on with me, neuropsych testing, was diagnosed with ADHD, and I thought, okay, this is going to help, and got some accommodations from the learning specialist right at school. So it wasn't what I anticipated, and you know, it really kind of colored the rest of the first 2 years that were in the classroom.
After that, like, how did you feel mentally, emotionally, and how did those around you respond to that? Right? Because then you have friends, you have supervisors. Did you feel like there was some letdown in terms of the expectations for you?
So you
Yes.
asked, what was the reaction to people around me? How was I feeling
Yes.
emotionally? Right after that exam, about 10 of us took a road trip to Arches National Park in Utah. 10, maybe it was even 15 of us. It was a big group. And the spirit was celebratory, but I was kind of like confused, thinking like, what happened? And I don't feel like I could really enjoy that time because I'm already dreading our next block and how am I going to do and am I going to pass? Now, in terms of other people having a reaction to this score, I hadn't failed. So, and I don't think I was flagged at all academically. So there wasn't anyone who was watching or concerned per se, but I was concerned myself. And then my colleagues, they didn't really know, my classmates, they didn't really know about it. Um, so yeah, people, were just going on. It was like, okay, let's go on to the next block. Let's go on to the next thing.
This was more of your expectations for
Yeah.
yourself that you, based on where you put yourself, this
Yeah.
was a failure for you in
Yes.
that sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just, I didn't feel like my performance on that exam really demonstrated my knowledge
Matched
or,
your
yeah.
preparation.
Hmm.
Okay. So, at that point in time, so you were like, okay, well, you got the testing. Were you then confident that everything else was going to go smoothly since you already had some idea of, what was going on with you mentally?
No, I mean, if anything, it made me more anxious because I'm like, okay, now I know I have this thing. Now I know I have ADHD. I have to, I think I started medicine, and I was working with academic supports. And, you know, for someone who is just prone to anxiety, which many of us are in general, who are in medicine, which, anxiety can be a good thing. It can get us ready, but you can also start to spiral. And so it's like, okay, if I didn't do well on this block, what's going to happen when the information is coming even faster? And we have multiple classes that we're taking. It's not just this concentrated, this one subject like anatomy was. So I was not feeling confident. I was feeling quite anxious and worried about what was to come.
So how do you, you decided, okay, I'm going to move on. Did you experience any failure again after that time?
Yes. Yeah. So I think my next couple of blocks were okay. But then came neurology, and I don't know what it is about neurology. I still struggle with neurology today, to be honest, with the different tracks and the different areas of the brain, sort of mapping things. It's not my strongest area,
I can
but
relate with that.
but there's something about it that's just so challenging. But that block, I failed. I failed that block. And I remember feeling quite devastated. At that time, I was running quite a bit. I was running with an organization called Black Girls Run. I remember feeling like, man, maybe I'm just going to quit. And it was an early morning run. And I shared that with one of the friends that I was running with. She was like, oh, absolutely not. You're not going to quit. You're going to get it together. You're going to give it another try, And so she got me right on together during that early morning run. But I was so discouraged. And so, I I couldn't believe it. And so at that point, I definitely was flagged by sort of academic services or the learning specialist, getting more supports. And one of the things that they recommended was that I work with a therapist on anxiety. And I'm not even sure how, test anxiety specifically, and I'm not even sure how that recommendation came about. I don't know if I filled out a survey or how how they figured out that's what I needed, but it was very helpful. And so I met with a therapist for anywhere from 8 to 10 sessions, and we worked on my confidence around testing. We did some practice questions together, and I didn't have I finished the first 2 years. After that neurology, I finished the first 2 years, made it through, and then made it to the time for rotations.
So, how did your journey, your decision to go into psychiatry, right? How did your journey shape that decision was that something you always wanted to do?
No, I came into medical school thinking I would do pediatrics and then maybe developmental and behavioral pediatrics because that's where I had worked for 5 years before medical school. And I've always loved working with children and families. My first job out of college was working for the WIC program. Um, so but once I got there and had some exposure, I just thought psychiatry was so fascinating. It captured my interest in the social sciences. Um, you really get to understand people in their context, their environment. You get to incorporate the biology when you think about medicines and when you think about medical conditions that can impact the mental state. It was just fascinating to me. And then my first rotation kind of sealed it. I was at the state hospital and the pathology that was very interesting there. I had a fantastic mentor, the psychiatrist who was the attending on that service. She's excellent. And so anyway, I pretty much after that first rotation, I was like, okay, I'm doing psychiatry and child psychiatry. But again, I had an open mind for all of my rotations and enjoyed many of them and worked hard in all of them. But I said, oh, I think this is for me. It marries my passion for the social sciences, the biological sciences. Like this is for me.
Why do you're a high achiever, which most doctors are. Like we're not daunted by, the challenges we see in medicine. So automatically that puts us in that category. Why is failure such a huge
Mm.
problem with us? I mean, why do we tie our self-worth to and performance? Why do we always tie to our failures?
So I'm going to pull on my knowledge as a psychiatrist, a child and adolescent psychiatrist, developmental psychiatrist to answer this question. If you think about when we form our identity, it's really happening in sort of late teens, late adolescence to early adulthood. And that's really when most of us are valedictorian, salutatorian, folks who are in medicine often are coming from, have been being high achievers when they were in high school, right? And so that becomes so much of their identity, how they're known, their family knows, oh, Bianca is very smart, right? And so that just follows you. It may continue in college, not for everyone. Sometimes people get to college and they're challenged. I certainly was, but some are not. And then they will graduate at their top of their college class. So it really is something that you take on as your identity. And then when you get to medical school, law school, business school, whatever it is, again, you're amongst the best, the brightest. So you can't always be number one. But when this has been so much a part of your identity, it feels you can have an identity crisis. Like, well, who am I if I'm not the top, if I'm not the best? Who am I if I fail this exam? I must not be smart anymore. I must not be as good. You can start to have all this internal dialogue because it's challenging who you know yourself to be.
So how do you then bounce back? Like, how do you dissociate yourself from that identity and be like, okay, a failure doesn't define
Yes.
me.
Yes.
How can I move past this?
Yeah, so I like to think about failure as data and not identity, right? Like if we can, that's one way that we can separate. If we think about this failure as, okay, well, what is this telling us? Is this telling us that I needed to spend more time? Is this telling me that for this type of material, I need to incorporate a particular way of learning? Like maybe I needed to watch more videos if I'm a visual learner. Is it telling me that I just didn't make enough time for it? And that's been the case for me at some points in my life where I failed, right? Not uncommon. So we can think about it as a data point and not take it on as our identity. And ways that we can separate it from our identity, I always encourage this with my patients who I'm seeing for therapy, is that we have some other ways that we can identify ourselves. Maybe it's a sport that we do. Maybe it's a religious community that we're a part of. You need something that can anchor you so that when you have a professional failure or an academic failure, you're still successful in some regard. And so in medical school, one of the things that helped pull me through, I mentioned, was running. And so I was struggling those first 2 years in the classroom. but I could get out and I knew I could run not fast, not fast, but I'm going to finish the race and I'm going to be in the company of people that I enjoy, right? So
Yeah.
that was an area where I could feel successful. And so if we make our identity solely this thing, we are really, pun intended, setting ourselves up for failure when we are not successful in that area specifically.
One of the things that, because I struggled my first months of residency,
Mhm,
I'd always known myself to be like this smart, confident person. And then when I
mhm,
started residency, it was like, I don't know that I'm this person anymore. And I wasn't showing up as my best self. I mean, there was some anxiety with that. So of course, once you already have anxiety, you cannot be your best self. Like that's
yes,
just a given. So I
yeah.
started to question everything. I was questioning, and then of course, then you think of how others see you also, right? It's like if you tell them that you are struggling or you're failing, they're like, that's not the you I know. You've
Right.
been this brilliant person. And so I remember having a conversation with a friend and I was like, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. And one of the things that she told me, she was like, look, knowledge is not congenital. And that has stuck with me for
Wow.
a long time. She's
Oh,
like,
that's so
whatever
interesting.
you need to know
I like
has to be
that.
learned.
I like
You're
that.
not born, it's not, we're medicine, we're like congenital or acquired. She's like, look,
Right.
knowledge is an acquired
Oh, I
condition.
love that.
Yeah. And so that was what she was like, whatever you don't know today,
Hmm.
you can know tomorrow. And
Hmm.
so that was one of the things that stuck with me, true. And I was like, okay, I don't know it today, but now I know I don't know it. And
Hmm.
so I seek that knowledge so that
Hmm.
it can become part of me. But like you said,
I
we're
like
so
that.
tied to that
Yes.
success mindset where, if that's the only thing going on for us,
Mhm.
then, and it doesn't turn out the way we want to, then we're really going to have really bad outcomes with that. Um, and so, if we do not adjust that mindset about ourselves,
Mhm.
how does it affect us in the future? Like, how do you know someone
Good.
hasn't
Good.
recovered from their setbacks?
This is good. So how do you know that someone hasn't recovered from their setbacks? It can continue to erode your self-esteem if you don't do some emotional recovery or emotional correction before you continue on, right? You might have these failures as a medical student, and that might carry into your confidence as a resident or even as an attending. So it's really important to take some time and to rebuild your confidence or your identity, and thinking about who you are holistically as a person, because it can impact how you show up in the future, how you show up in wanting promotion, desiring promotion. Do you feel like you deserve promotion, right? If you think, oh, maybe I'm not as smart as I used to, maybe I shouldn't be promoted to professor, associate professor, whatever the case may be, right? So you're thinking about that. If you're in private practice, you might be not uh, showing up as your full self or even demanding what you're worth, in terms of how your patients treat you or compensate you. So, I mean, there are implications all across the board. And then one thing that I also want to highlight is just, again, having multiple facets to your identity. I have had patients that I've worked with in psychotherapy when their primary career ends unexpectedly, or they can find themselves just spiraling because they haven't invested in other areas of their lives. So that's one of the biggest recommendations I have. And sometimes our careers require that we're solely dedicated to be very good, or they're time demanding, right? Like different areas of medicine, you're just going to be spending a lot of time in the OR, and that's how you get really good, right? But one day you're going to retire, or you might have an injury that doesn't allow you to operate anymore. And so if you've got something else that you're really good at, it's going to prevent you from spiraling, and also just help you deal with whatever that setback is.
That's awesome. And one of the things that I wish that we taught medical students a lot is that you're not just an MD. Like because of the long duration that we spend in medicine time-wise, we have that it's such a big part of us that when it feels like it's being taken away from you, let's say they call you up for probation, and they're like
Mhm.
in your residency program, or they're like, hey, maybe you should not be a doctor anymore. Maybe
Mhm.
you need to look for an alternate career course. It
Mhm.
feels like the world has ended
Yes.
because we've tied so much of our identity to an MD that we can't see ourselves like, or maybe I'm an artist. Maybe there's this artist
Yeah.
side of me. Like
Yeah.
maybe there's this business side of me.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's this leadership part of me because we're so wrapped up in the MD
Mhm.
identity. And so, like I said, if it doesn't work out the way we want it to, then we feel like all hope is lost. So it's awesome that you talked about we have to have another identity outside of medicine. So did you have instances like that where someone maybe told you that, hey, this is not for you?
Oh yeah.
Um, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, a couple of occasions where it's really been questioned, will I make it or is this for me? And you have the pre-med advisors in undergrad, and they were just like, no, probably not. With my undergraduate GPA and science GPA, which were admittedly quite low. But I was so persistent. I was still persistent. I even would go to like the SNMA events. Is it SNMA or no? MAPS. MAPS is in college. SNMA is in medical school. And I go to the MAPS events, and there was a mentor for our MAPS chapter, and he was just like, yeah, this isn't going to happen for you. You should do public health. Just forget about it. Like, that's going to be close enough to medicine, and, forget about it. I've had so many experiences, even a mentor who, because it was taking me a while to prepare, she said, are you sure you don't want to just do nursing school instead? And I said, I am sure. I am very sure I want to go to medical school. And boy, am I glad that I persevered, because I love what I get to do. So definitely there were those outside voices when, the failures, because it really was, the failures are at the forefront at the present, and that's what they're seeing, and they're not able to see my potential.
Yeah.
But one thing that I would say is another take home point, if you're on this journey at any point, is having a community behind you that can support you. My pastor from the church that I grew up in would always call me Dr. Pullen. That's my maiden name. Even when my grades were terrible, he would still call me Dr. Pullen. And so you hear that in your ear, right? And you're like, okay, this is for me. This is destined. This is who I'm supposed to be, right? So having people like that in your court, my mom, my sister, my grandmother, people who are always cheering you on, even when it looks bleak, that's really important to being able to move forward. Yeah.
That's awesome. So if you were to look back at your younger self, through your challenges that you had to face, was there any advice that you would say, I would
Mm-hmm.
have told myself this back then? Because maybe, I would not have had to deal with some of the
Yes.
tough bumps that I had to go
Yes.
through, or I would have dealt with them better.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Okay. I had this mentor in college who told me I should just do a post-bac. She could see that I was struggling in the science, and she said, just stop and do a post-bac. I said, no, I'm going to tough it out. I'm just going to if I could go back, I would study abroad. I would just take my social sciences and enjoy myself. And then I would do a post. I ended up doing a post-bac anyway. So I would do a post-bac later. So I know that's not always a popular opinion, and post-bacs can be expensive. I did one where I took classes at night and worked during the day, so it was more affordable for me. But that's definitely something that I would have done differently. That's probably one of the biggest things. I don't know that there's anything in medical school that I would have done differently. I think it went just how it was supposed to go. Same for residency. Fellowship, maybe I would not have been a chief. That's probably something I would do differently. And it's relevant to this because I failed my adult psychiatry boards by 1 point. And I was overloaded with commitments when I was studying for it. So I think
Yeah.
that probably wasn't necessary for me to be a chief.
Uh,
But I might have gotten at 1 point. Yeah.
So, through your experiences, right, you've had to redefine your success. You've had to redefine what your achievement. what achievement means to you. So how have you redefined success for you? What does that look like?
Well, that's a good question. You know, high school me would have defined success as A minus to A plus. That's where we need to be. College, C's make degrees, you know, we get just kind of lower down there, like I just got to make it through, right? So it's just less emphasis on the academic. And then I changed to more of a learning mentality. What can I learn in these college courses? What can I gather? And what's fun about learning? So that changed what success looked like for me, sort of academically. And then professionally, um, I think making the choice to not reside solely in academic medicine. I do have some academic appointments where I'm able to teach, but I'm in private practice. And, you know, when you're in academia, success can look like getting awards, getting grants, having recognition from people in your
All the titles
department,
attached to your name,
titles, promotion,
that long
right?
resume.
Yeah, and so I had to make the conscious decision to leave that behind because I knew that wasn't going to fit many of my needs, my financial needs, the needs that I have for family, even what it would take for me to get the promotions that I would want. I just knew that wasn't going to be right for me. So I had to consciously leave that behind. Like that is a type of success. But for me now, what is success is like getting that diagnosis right. Like that thing that I'm like, really think this patient has this, making sure that they get evaluated for that. And when it's like, I knew it, I knew that patient had a thing, that feels like success. You know, when people get better and they stop seeing me because they're better, that feels like success. Being able to be present with my family, you know, being able to drop my kids off at school and pick them up and spend time with them. For me, that feels like success. So it's, if you asked 20-year-old me, I don't think I would have defined success in the same way. I think I would have been like, I want to be department chair, right? So, but that has changed over the years for me.
So basically tying your value to something else
Hmm.
would be what you would say, because now your value is more in how you show up for your patients, how you're able to successfully diagnose and treat them
Hmm.
versus the feathers on your cap or the tenured professor.
Hmm.
Yeah, and your
Yeah.
family, of course. That is awesome. What
Yeah.
does resilience look like for you? And that's something because you sound like, I mean, over the course of your journey, you've had to be resilient because there were times you were saying, well, this is not the right thing for you to do, you know. So, what does resilience look like for
Mm.
you?
Um, that's a great question. I mean, it really looks like failing, thinking about why I failed, and trying again. And I mean, I continue to have what would be called failures. Like as a business person, I try something out, nobody wants it, nobody buys it, right? That technically would be a failure. So I had to think about, okay, well, why did no one buy it? Was it the wrong price? Was it the wrong offer? So I'm kind of in a different lane now outside of academia, but it's really just thinking about, okay, this didn't work. Why didn't it work? Is it worth it for me to figure out why it didn't work? And if not, let me move on to the next thing. So that is how I've become resilient, I think, is, or how I exercise resilience is really thinking about the goals that I have. How am I going to get there? If the things that I've tried haven't worked, what is going to work? And asking people, doing research. I mean, we're lifelong learners, like, right? That's like what we
Yeah.
pride ourselves on. And I've had to learn so many different skills as a business owner because you wear all of the different hats. Some I'm not good at. And so I'm like, okay, somebody else should do that for me because I'm not good at it, right? But it's trying again until you get it or getting the right person to do it for you instead.
And that almost led me to my next question. So you kind of took some of the words out of my mouth with that, where I was saying, do you believe that failure can be a gift? You know, and in if so, then what way?
Yeah, I think in general it can. What made me say no is, you know, I've continued to have these failures. My child psychiatry boards, I missed passing by 0.4%.
Already.
Did not feel like a gift that I had to retake that test. Felt like a curse. But In general, it can be because it gives you an opportunity to grow, gives you an opportunity to try something again, to do it better, or gives you the opportunity to say, hey, this wasn't actually the right thing for me, and to move on from it, right? Like you might try something out thinking this is going to be the best thing. It doesn't work out. And you're like, well, did I actually need that in the first place? So, I look at it as a gift, as a way of learning about yourself, learning about your capacity, learning new things. Absolutely. It may not feel like it in the moment. Um, but, failing these board exams, the gift in it all is really taking the time to think about what's important. Do I need this as a private practitioner? What sacrifices am I willing to make to retake these exams? And so I took a year off after I failed each one of those. I took a year off. I said, you know what? I'm going to focus on me or my family or my practice. And I think it's good to, the lessons in that were really good. It's like, okay, this isn't just who you are. Like, it's going to be fine if you don't pass. Like, you can take it again. And here are these other areas of your life that need to be watered, right?
Awesome. So how did you then transition? So I mean, as part of your bio, you said that you help high achieving individuals, like including
Mhm.
physicians, rebuild their confidence. How do you do that? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So in my practice, one of the reasons why I started my practice is because I love psychotherapy. And a lot of the times, if you're employed as a psychiatrist, you will be prescribing medicines only and not delivering the therapy. That will be
Yeah.
social workers, psychologists. And so I have been able to see many high achievers in my practice doing therapy. When I worked with a wonderful physician who had a history of failures, we worked together over a year, and she passed that exam with flying colors. I was so proud of her. And so that really inspired me to help others, because I think it's just a shame that folks can be so brilliant and this one test can get in the way. And so I've talked to, at this point, hundreds of learners across disciplines: financial planning, real estate, law school students who are facing the same thing. They're smart, they get to this test, they can't pass, so they can't get to the next step in their career. And so I'm taking my knowledge as a psychiatrist, because it really boils down to, thinking patterns, what's going through folks' head, even just organization, how they're organizing their time, learning style. Are they taking in the information the best way possible? And then sometimes there's actually an anxiety that needs to be potentially treated with medicine or other kinds of supplements, right? So I'm marrying my experience with my professional knowledge to help people. And it is so satisfying to see people succeed once they tackle,
Yeah.
a few of these things, whatever's getting in the way, or even just like calming their body. People can get to tests and panic, and you can't even get the information that's in your head. You can't even recall it because your body is in fight or flight mode.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a prime example of that because I'm one,
Mm.
even, and it's weird because no matter how many times I do it, like public speaking, or if I have to, it's like I do this, to a certain degree, I should think, I should be comfortable with it. But then if I don't write everything, like my thinking has to be like here, 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 here. If it's not in that pattern, I tend
Mm-hmm.
to freeze, you know. And I always, and my husband
Wow.
laughs at me all the time. He, every 5 minutes before any talk, even
Uh-huh.
if it's a podcast, I'm running to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, your body,
That
your body is in that mode.
I went 10 minutes before, and it's like, you still go, yes, I still have to go. Like, that's just, otherwise, I can't focus.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I can
yeah,
see how working through all that developing strategies to go with that would help
yeah,
you show up as your best self. So, do
yes.
you have like a coaching program, or
I
how do
do, I
folks
do.
find you if they want to connect with you?
So you can find me for clinical services at drbiancabusch.com. And then for coaching, I do coaching on test anxiety. I wrote a book on it. So you can find that on many platforms, Barnes& Noble, Amazon. And then I created a course. It's about 4 hours of video that you can watch or listen to like a podcast, an accompanying workbook, an affirmation series that you can listen to 28 days, a month before your exam, and then a planner where you can plan out your time. And I just used it actually to study for my child boards. It was helpful because I could like move things around if I needed to. So some folks have been trying it out, testing it out, enrolling, getting help, and they found it really useful as they're approaching their boards for the first time
Yeah.
or if they're retaking them. So testanxietynomore.com is where you can find the book, the course, and the other resources.
Awesome. I would definitely include that in the show notes. So
Okay,
is there
awesome.
anything that any final message that you would want to leave with residents, students, physicians, or any high achievers that you think we did not cover that you just want to just pour your heart out and just let them know?
I just want to be an example for people. You can fail and overcome in ways that your mind can't even see right now. In my therapies practice, I sometimes tell my patients I'm the holder of hope. Sometimes things look really hopeless and bleak, but it's my job to hold the hope for a better time, a healing, whatever it might be. And so you don't know me, I may not know you, but if you're having a hard time, just know I am cheering you on. If you've come this far, you can definitely get through and get over what's happening for now. So that's what I'll leave with. I am cheering you on, even if you don't know me. Okay.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bush. It's been an absolute pleasure just having you share your story, your resilience, tips and strategies, and just teaching us that there's more to us regarding our identity, and
Mhm.
failure should never define us. It's never pleasant at the moment,
That's right.
but down the line, I think at some point in time, it will likely bring out a better version.
Yes.
And one of the things that, I've come to learn over time is that without those experiences, right, you do not have any credibility, not credibility as such, but like talking to someone about theirs. Like you can, but there's a certain level of connection you would have with someone who's has been through what you've gone through
Mhm.
versus you've never had to deal with failure and you're here advising is like,
Yeah.
what? You can't be in my shoes to know what I'm feeling. But when you have, like when you've been there, when you've walked in their shoes, there is there's a connection and there's a reception that they can receive from you because you're not talking out of your head. You're talking from a place of experience with them. So thank you for sharing your journey with us. And we're glad to have you here. So if you've been listening and you want to connect with Dr. Bush, I would definitely put her information. But we've had an awesome time here at Physicians Keepers. Looking forward to having you all at the next episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we're looking forward to the next episode where we hear from another wonderful physician who would also share their story and their journey so that we can be inspired and we can learn how to be our physician's keeper. And you've been an awesome physician's keeper today, Dr. Bush. I'm sure
Well,
there are many doctors who would benefit from your story and hopefully pick themselves up and know that their failure at whatever point in time in their journey did not define them. So thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for listening to Physicians Keepers. I hope today's conversation gave you something useful to carry into your life or practice. If it resonated, share it with another physician who might need it. And if you have a story that could help someone else, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on social media or send me an email. See you in the next episode.